Most people want success, but very few are willing to pay the price. It's not that they don't desire the rewards, they just refuse the disciplines. And that's the gap. That's the reason they fail. You see, success isn't a mystery. It leaves clues. It's not hidden behind a wall or locked in some secret vault. It's out there in the open. But it requires something most people aren't willing to give. Consistent action on simple disciplines, repeated every day. Now here's what's interesting, it's easy to do, but it's also easy not to do. It's easy to wake up an hour early and read, plan, think, prepare, but most people won't. It's easy to say no to the wrong influences, to turn off the distractions and use your time wisely, but most people won't. And that, my friends, makes all the difference. People talk about dreams, but dreams without discipline are just wishes, and wishes don't build wealth. Wishes don't change lives. Wishes don't create legacy. Action does, planning does, focus does, and unfortunately, most people won't do it. Why? Because it's uncomfortable. Because it requires change. Because it asks them to leave behind the old habits and confront themselves. It's much easier to stay average, to blend in, to follow the crowd and complain when things don't work out. But easy never built a strong life. Comfort never produced greatness. The crowd never led the way. Every successful person you admire, they did the hard things. They studied when others partied. They saved when others spent. They worked when others rested. They pushed forward when others quit. And guess what? The price they paid is now the life they live. Most people will never delay gratification. That's why they fail. They want results without effort. They want growth without discomfort. They want to win without preparing for the battle. But life doesn't work like that. You don't get what you want, you get what you earn, what you prepare for, what you discipline yourself to become. Now you have to decide, do you want to be like most people, or do you want to become something different? Because different results require different choices. And it starts with doing the things that most people won't. They won't read. They won't learn. They won't plan. They won't persist. They won't take responsibility. That's why they fail. But you can decide today. You can choose the path of uncommon discipline, the path of daily effort, the path of long-term thinking. And if you do, if you stay with it, you'll earn the rewards most people only dream about. Don't wish it was easier. Wish you were better. Don't wait for life to change. Become the change. Take responsibility. Do the work. Make the hard choices, because that's what winners do. And most people will never do it. But you can. And that's where the magic begins. Success isn't built on big moments. It's built on small, seemingly insignificant choices that compound over time. Most people miss this truth. They think success is a matter of talent or timing or luck, but it's really about discipline. Simple, repeated disciplines, nothing dramatic, nothing flashy, just the daily choice to do what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like it. You see, every day offers us a handful of decisions. Wake up early or sleep in. Read or scroll. Plan or procrastinate. Save or spend. Exercise or stay comfortable. And most of those choices don't seem like they matter today, but over time they add up. That's the part most people ignore. They want big results from big actions, but life doesn't work that way. Life rewards consistency. It's like planting seeds. You don't see the fruit the next morning, but that doesn't mean the seed isn't working. The roots are growing. The soil is shifting, and the process has begun. But it only works if you keep watering, keep showing up, keep doing the small things every day. That's the secret. The boring, consistent disciplines that don't give immediate gratification, but guarantee long-term growth. People want a breakthrough, but they're not even willing to build the foundation. They want transformation, but they skip the preparation. Reading 10 pages of a good book daily won't change your life tomorrow, but do it for a year, and your mind will be completely different. Taking 30 minutes to reflect, plan, and review your day won't give you a trophy. But over time, it sharpens your thinking and increases your productivity in ways most people will never experience. The truth is, most people already know what to do. They just don't do it. Not because it's hard, but because it's easy to ignore. It's easy to choose convenience. It's easy to tell yourself you'll start later. But here's the trap. Later usually becomes never. And in the end, it's not the major life events that define your future. It's the daily choices, the repeated disciplines, the boring habits you stay committed to, even when no one's watching. Think about the people who are successful. Not just financially, but in their relationships, their health, their mindset. They didn't get there from a lucky break. They got there by doing what others wouldn't. Getting up early, saying no to distractions, building habits, staying consistent when it got dull or frustrating or slow. The world only sees the results, but behind every successful person is a stack of days where they did the right thing when they didn't feel like it. That's what makes the difference. Most people won't stick with the basics long enough to see the reward. They get impatient. They look for shortcuts. But there are no shortcuts to real success. There's just the work, the process, the daily decision to show up and do what matters. And the beautiful part, these disciplines are simple. Not easy, but simple. Anyone can do them, but most won't. That's why they fail. But you don't have to. You can choose today to start doing the small things, reading, reflecting, showing gratitude, setting goals, taking care of your body, developing your mind. They might not seem powerful right away, but give it time. Stick with it. Let the compound effect work in your favor. Because in the end, success belongs to those who master the small things daily, quietly, consistently, relentlessly. It's easy to do, and it's just as easy not to do. That's the simple truth most people miss. The actions that lead to success aren't complex or difficult to understand. You don't need a genius level IQ. You don't need perfect circumstances. You don't need to be born with the right connections. All you need is the willingness to do the simple things consistently. But that's where most people stumble, because they underestimate the power of small actions repeated over time. They think, if it's that simple, it can't make a big difference. But that thinking is exactly why most people fail. Take reading for 10 minutes a day. Anyone can do it. It requires no special talent, no expensive resources, just a decision, a tiny slice of your time. Yet most people won't. Why? Because it's easy not to. It doesn't scream urgency. It doesn't come with alarms or deadlines, and so they skip it. One day becomes 2 days become a week, and suddenly they haven't read a book in years. But imagine if they had chosen the other direction. 10 minutes a day, every day, for a year. That's over 60 hours of reading. That's dozens of new ideas, shifts in thinking, and a transformed mindset, one small choice at a time. This principle applies to every area of life, your health, your finances, your relationships. Success doesn't demand a heroic effort, it demands consistent effort. Simple choices like preparing your meals instead of eating out, tracking your spending instead of ignoring it, saying I appreciate you to someone you love instead of assuming they know. These aren't hard, but they are easy to neglect, and most people do. Not because they don't care, not because they don't want better, but because the results aren't immediate and the pressure to act isn't loud. That's where discipline comes in. Discipline is choosing what's important over what's convenient. It's recognizing that while skipping a small test today might not ruin your life, it's setting a pattern, and that pattern compounds. That's the danger of easy not to do. Because every time you choose not to act, you're reinforcing the habit of inaction. You're telling your brain, this doesn't matter. And soon those little decisions shape your results or your regrets. Most people live in reaction mode. They wait until there's a crisis, until their health is falling apart, until their finances are in chaos, until their relationships are broken. Then they scramble for solutions, but success isn't built in crisis mode. It's built in the calm, in the quiet, in the daily decision to do the small things that most people ignore. It's built when no one's watching. It's built when there's no applause. Just you, your habits, and your choices. And that's what separates winners from the rest. Winners understand the long game. They don't need instant gratification. They're not chasing quick fixes. They're stacking small wins one after another until momentum takes over. And once it does, they become unstoppable. Not because they worked harder one day, but because they worked smarter every day. The beauty of it is anyone can start. You don't need permission. You don't need to wait. You just need to decide. Are you going to do the little things, the easy things, the things that seem too small to matter, but that actually make all the difference? Or are you going to ignore them like most people do? It's easy to do and easy not to do. That's the line. That's the test. And your future depends on which side you choose. Discomfort is the doorway to growth, but unfortunately, most people run from it. They treat discomfort like a warning sign rather than a green light. They say, this feels hard, so maybe it's not for me, when in fact, the very challenge they're avoiding is what would unlock their next level. You don't grow in comfort. You grow when you stretch, when you do what's unfamiliar, when you step into the uncertain and stay there long enough to build strength, skill, and resilience. The reason most people never reach their potential is simple. They avoid discomfort. You win discomfort. They want the results, but not the process. They want to be fit, but they don't want to sweat. They want wealth, but they don't want to work late, manage their spending, or study their craft. They want meaningful relationships, but they don't want the vulnerability that real connection requires. D, they want growth, but they're not willing to be uncomfortable long enough to earn it. It's human nature to seek ease. The mind prefers safety, routine, and the known, but success lives outside of that zone. It lives where you don't have all the answers, where your heart beats faster, where you feel exposed. That's where you meet the real version of yourself. Not the one that talks about goals, but the one that proves them through action. And the only way to meet that version is by doing things that push you, challenge you, and sometimes scare you. Discomfort doesn't mean something's wrong. It often means you're exactly where you need to be. When you go to the gym and your muscles burn, that's not a sign to stop. That's a sign of growth and progress. The same applies to life. When the conversation is hard, when the habit is tough to build, when the goal feels far away and the results are slow, that's not failure. That's the price. That's the weight being lifted. And the more you embrace it, the stronger you become. Most people quit too soon. They start something, feel the resistance, and then stop. But what they don't realize is that discomfort is temporary. And on the other side of it is power. You adapt, you improve. You begin to do what once felt impossible, but only if you stay with it. Only if you keep going when it's not easy, not convenient, not comfortable. That's where growth happens, not in the ease, but in the effort. It's easy to look at successful people and admire their confidence or skill, but what we often miss is the pain they endured to get there, the failures they faced, the fears they pushed through, the moments of self-doubt they conquered. Success isn't about having less fear. It's about having more courage, and courage is born in discomfort. Every time you choose to step forward when it would be easier to step back, you build it. The truth is, discomfort isn't your enemy. It's your trainer. It shapes you, strengthens you, prepares you. It reveals who you are and who you're becoming. The people who reach greatness didn't get there by staying comfortable. They made peace with the stretch. They chose discomfort on purpose, knowing it was the only path to excellence. So when you feel that tension, don't run. Lean in. That moment might just be your greatest opportunity. Most people will avoid it. That's why they remain where they are. But if you choose discomfort, you'll find growth. And through that growth, you'll find everything you're truly capable of. Success demands a certain mindset, one that understands the power of patience and delayed gratification. But most people live in a world of instant rewards. They want it now. They want the result without the waiting, the trophy without the training, the celebration without the sweat. That's why they fail, because real success never shows up immediately. It takes time. It takes discipline. It takes the maturity to trade short-term comfort for long-term gain. Think about it. The habits that build your future don't give you results right away. When you start saving money, your bank account doesn't double overnight. When you begin exercising, your body doesn't transform in a week. When you launch a new idea, the world doesn't immediately applaud. And that's where most people lose, because they want to see the payoff before they've paid the full price. They don't understand that the delay is part of the process. It's not a punishment, it's a test of how badly you want it, a test of your consistency, a test of your vision. Delayed gratification means saying no today so you can say yes to something better tomorrow. It means passing on the quick thrill to build something meaningful. It's turning down the weekend spending so you can invest in your future. It's skipping the party to work on your craft. Showing up day after day without recognition, trusting that the harvest will come if you keep planting. That's not just discipline, it's character, and it's rare. Because in a world that teaches people to chase pleasure, it takes strength to chase purpose. The challenge is there's no applause in the waiting. No crowd cheering you on while you're doing the right thing in silence. It's just you, your routine, your commitment. That's where champions are made. Not when the spotlight is on, but when no one's watching. You keep going. Keep believing and keep working even when it feels like nothing is changing. Because deep down, you know, it is changing, just not on the surface yet. People give up too soon. They look at the results, don't see enough progress, and quit. Success was never supposed to be immediate. It was meant to be earned. And that earning comes through persistence, patience, and delayed reward. If you can master that, you separate yourself from 90% of the world, because most people can't wait. They want it fast. They want it easy. And in their rush, they miss the real reward, who they become in the process. The truth is, delayed gratification is freedom. It's the ability to rise above impulse and choose what serves your future, not just your feelings. And once you develop that muscle, life becomes different. You stop reacting and you start building. You stop chasing moments and you start creating legacy. You stop falling into the same traps that keep most people stuck, and you begin climbing to places most never reach. Every great leader, every great achiever, every story worth remembering is built on this principle. They didn't rise overnight. They planted, they waited, they endured, and eventually they reaped. Not because they were lucky, but because they were willing to delay the comfort, the ease, the celebration until the time was right. So if you're doing the right things and not seeing results yet, keep going. Work is working, even if it hasn't shown up in your bank account, your body, or your business yet. Most people won't wait. That's why they fail. But if you do, you'll discover a strength and success they'll never understand. Most people follow the crowd. Take comfort in numbers, in being surrounded by others who think the same way, act the same way, and settle the same way. It feels normal. But here's the problem. Normal isn't working. The crowd isn't headed toward excellence. The crowd isn't building something extraordinary. The crowd is surviving, not thriving. And if you do what they do, you'll get what they get. That's the trap. And that's why success begins with a decision to lead yourself. You don't need to be the loudest person in the room, the most talented, or the most confident. What you need is the courage to think independently, to look at the crowd and say, just because everyone is doing it doesn't mean it's right for me. Most people wake up reacting. They follow routines they never questioned. They adopt opinions they never examined. They live a life built on default settings. But leaders, real leaders, pause, they think, they evaluate, they choose. Self-leadership is about direction. It's about deciding where you want to go and aligning your actions with that destination. Not where your friends are going, not where society is pushing you, but where you believe you're meant to be. And that takes clarity. That takes discipline. That takes the willingness to walk alone sometimes. Because when you choose growth, you will be misunderstood. When you choose discipline, you will be criticized. Now, when you say no to distractions, some people will laugh. But remember, those people are in the crowd, and the crowd doesn't lead. The great ones didn't wait for approval. They didn't check to see what everyone else was doing. They led themselves. They developed habits that aligned with their vision. They held themselves accountable. They didn't need a cheerleader to get started. They didn't need the world to understand their process. They believed in the goal, so they did the work. That's what separates achievers from dreamers. Achievers lead themselves long before the rewards ever show up. And here's the truth. Following the crowd is easy. That's why most people do it. It doesn't require reflection. It doesn't require resistance. You just move with the group and hope you end up somewhere good. But life doesn't reward passive living. It rewards those who take charge, those who wake up with intention, those who decide how they'll respond instead of being pulled in every direction by noise and pressure. You can't live an uncommon life with a common mindset. If you want to stand out, you have to stop blending in. That means creating your own standards, your own goals, your own values. It means not lowering yourself to fit someone else's level of comfort. It means being willing to grow past people who refuse to change. It's not easy, but it's worth it. Because on the other side of self-leadership is freedom. Freedom to build the life you want. Freedom to break the cycle of average. Freedom to live by design, not by default. You'll never rise above the crowd if you're always trying to fit in. Greatness requires separation. And that separation begins the moment you stop following and start leading your habits, your mindset, your time, your direction. Most people won't do that. Most people will stay with the crowd, hoping that comfort will produce change. But it never does. Comfort keeps people stuck. Leadership sets people free. So choose to lead yourself Choose to break away from the noise and build something that matters. You don't need permission. You don't need the crowd to approve. You just need the decision to start and the discipline to continue. You don't get what you want in life. You get what you earn. That's the truth most people ignore. They walk around with big dreams, bold intentions, and endless desires, but very little commitment to match. Wanting is easy. Everyone wants something. Everyone wants to be successful, to be wealthy, to be happy, to live a meaningful life. But wanting doesn't change anything. Effort does. Action does. Consistency does. You don't rise because you wish to. You rise because you work for it, you fight for it, and you refuse to settle for less. Most people confuse intention with execution. They say, I'm going to start that business, or I'll get in shape, or I'll fix my habits. But nothing changes, because deep down they're hoping the result will arrive without them doing the real work. But life doesn't operate on hope. Life operates on cause and effect. You plant, you water, you wait, and you harvest. No shortcuts, skipping steps. Just steady, intentional effort that compounds over time. That's where discipline enters the picture. Discipline is the bridge between what you want and what you actually experience. It's the invisible force that takes dreams out of your mind and brings them into reality. But discipline only shows up when you stop negotiating with yourself, when you stop making excuses. When you say, it doesn't matter how I feel today, I'm doing what I committed to. That's how you earn it. You earn it when you stop waiting to feel motivated and start living like your future depends on what you do today. Success is earned in the small things, in how you spend your mornings, in whether you choose progress over distraction, in whether you finish what you start, in how often you do what needs to be done even when no one is watching. Most people want to be successful in public but aren't willing to do the work in private. But the private work is where the battle is won. It's in the daily grind, the moments of silence, the uncomfortable choices, and the lonely hours that no one sees. And what's earned is never taken for granted. When you earn something, you value it, you protect it, you grow it. That's why the people who win big are often the ones who came from the bottom, because they had to build everything brick by brick. They didn't have handouts. They didn't rely on luck. They relied on grit, on showing up day after day, even when it didn't feel like anything was happening. And eventually their effort caught up with their vision. That's what separates the few from the many. The few understand that dreams without discipline are just fantasies. The few understand that success is predictable. It follows effort, clarity, and sacrifice. The few are willing to do what most people won't, to keep going when it's slow, to keep showing up when it's hard, and to keep believing when it would be easier to give in. So if you're not where you want to be, don't complain. Don't blame. Look at what you've been earning. Look at the choices you've been making, because the results you're getting are always a reflection of the work you've put in or haven't. That's not a punishment. That's power. Because if you earned your current level, you can also earn your next one. Stop wishing. Start earning. Let your actions speak louder than your hopes. Let your habits outwork your desires. Most people will never do this. That's why they stay stuck. But you can. And if you do, the life you earn will be worth every